The Illinois State Supreme Court, in their infinite wisdom, 5-2 Democrat majority, unsurprisingly upheld Governor Jellybelly's sport rifle ban. That's not the end of the story on that, however, because there are federal lawsuits surrounding that. Because this just in, your Second Amendment right to self-protection is a constitutional right.
Don't tell them that. Yeah.
That trumps state law, not in an unlimited way, because there are gun restrictions that have passed constitutional muster. We'll see if Jellybelly's did, but that's not the only thing he did when it came to guns. He also signed the Firearm Industry Responsibility Act. You know, he is not a huge fan of First Amendment rights any more than he is Second Amendment rights. I'm talking about the governor. The Firearm Industry Responsibility Act bans advertising or marketing that encourages unlawful private military activity.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, first of all, you need a state law to prohibit something that's prohibited at the federal level. No. Virtue signaling. It also bans advertising firearms to people under 18 and limits the kind of imagery that can be used in the ads. It allows people to sue manufacturers. Of course, this is to try to get to manufacturers through the back door, because you can't get to them through the front door because of Supreme Court jurisprudence, like, for example, the Heller and McDonald decisions. Pritzker saying, we hold opioid manufacturers accountable. We hold vaping companies accountable. We hold predatory lenders accountable. Gun manufacturers shouldn't get to hide from the law, and now they won't be able to. They were never able to hide from the law. The difference is that industry should be held to the same standard when it comes to advertising and any other sort of regulation. Gun manufacturers had no indemnification from the law. That's just a lie. And it's ironic because we just heard from Governor Pritzker in the legislation he signed that is clearly unconstitutional and has been enjoined by a federal judge for the time being, that pregnancy care centers don't have the right to lie. His, version of what a lie is. Well, this is just a bald-faced one, and he just said you don't have the right to lie. So when does he go to prison? For more on this and other matters of a legal nature, please be joined again by Eric Weis. He's the state's attorney for Kendall County, Illinois. Eric, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Thanks for having me again.
So what of Pritzker's action and now the state Supreme Court's action as well when it comes to Second Amendment rights? Can you take both the Supreme Court's decision and this legislation, the Firearm Industry Responsibility Act, in turn?
Well, I'll take the legislation first. I mean, the quickest and easiest and obvious answer is, I believe it's unconstitutional. But you also look at that. Take a car manufacturer. They advertise how fast your car can go and how quickly it accelerates. Are they going to be held responsible for every time there's a car crash? Mm-hmm. No, it's not any different than a gun. But I was
the other part of it too. I mean, the standard by which you're going to be accused of advertising to people under the age of 18. How are you supposed to wall off, online advertising or advertising you do to even email to clients that get shared? Then are you going to be subject to civil action under this law?
Well, and it's such a broad standard. It's such an undefinable standard that's again a reason where you look at the constitutionality of something and I don't see how that's going to act, but that doesn't seem to stop certain people from doing certain things.
Mm-hmm. And on the sport rifle ban?
Yeah, you know what? You're probably not going to like my answer, but I'm not overly surprised by the Supreme Court because the complaint itself never actually addressed the Second Amendment argument. And if you read the opinion carefully, I've read it a couple times, it really gives a roadmap of how this ban is unconstitutional. If you read it carefully and you read even probably the second page of the opinion, it even says, we express no opinion on the potential viability of plaintiff's waived claim concerning the Second Amendment. Now, I wasn't in the trial court. I didn't file the complaint.
Right.
But why that wasn't brought more to the attention. It's mentioned, Dan and Amy, probably 10 times in the opinion, at a minimum. I didn't count the numbers, but that we don't address the Second Amendment argument. So it was an equal protection argument and a issue regarding, excuse me, commerce stuff, which is, it should have been upheld on that provision, and it was a 4-3 decision. But I'm actually very confident that if this would get back to the Supreme Court in the Second Amendment portion, that they would find it unconstitutional.
Well, then, if that was a mistake by Dan Calkins, I think the former state rep, outgoing state rep, who filed that suit, if that was just a strategic mistake, well, that's fine. That is what it is, as you're describing.
Yeah.
But then, wouldn't that suggest that the suits filed at the federal level have a good chance of succeeding?
Yes, I agree. I think everybody who does this type of work, who looks at this and says, is this constitutional under the Second Amendment portion? There's one of that in the Illinois Constitution as well, is looking at this like there's just no way this is going to stand up. And again, I think they gave a great roadmap. I don't like the outcome. I wish they would have founded on what the grounds were there. But it's all but spells it out that this is just an unconstitutional act. It tells why it's unconstitutional. It tells the standard that they're going to review it under. It tells why the difference between the equal protection argument and the Second Amendment argument would be a different outcome. They're just saying, well, but it's the only thing that's not in front of us. It's not here for us to decide, but we're telling you this is what the answer is. And it goes into pretty good detail about why.
Well, what about high-capacity magazines? Where does that stand?
You know what? I think when looking at the bill that they brought and the sections that they brought, it would be from my reading of it, again, just from mine, that it's going to throw everything of that out.
And I have to I mentioned this particularly with respect to the advertising legislation. The incredible statement that Pritzker made in defending this legislation he signed and the General Assembly, in its infinite wisdom, sent to his desk, that attempts to criminalize the advertising of pregnancy care centers. And he literally said verbatim, you have a right to free speech, but you don't have a right to lie. This is a Northwestern law grad. What an indictment of Northwestern law, or maybe just an indictment of this individual's character, this individual Northwestern law grad's character, probably more the latter. But yeah, if you said you don't have a right to commit fraud, well, yeah, that's true. But right to lie, because I so deem the pregnancy care center's effort to serve women in crisis who are pregnant, I deem that somehow deceptive, or I just don't like their existence. I'm going to call them liars and then ban their lying?
Yeah, I can't follow the logic, Dan. At some point, the logic has to make sense, and this one doesn't, because you're right. You and I can disagree about something. Which one's lying? I don't know. Probably neither one of us are lying, but I can accuse you of lying because you don't say what I want you to say.
And I just think all of this came about because of the horrific Highland Park shooting, and then somebody got shot in Highland Park yesterday.
Well,
the gun issue, not the pregnancy care center issue.
Right.
But you just have, the federal district court that enjoined this legislation, the pregnancy care center legislation, excoriated Kwame Raoul. Almost to the point of ridicule. And I don't know. I just wonder where, other than from the pro-life community and from this show, where are self-respecting prosecutors like yourself, law enforcement, just average citizens, to say, who does this guy think he is? This is just black letter violation of people's fundamental rights, and it gets nary any coverage outside of those venues I just mentioned.
No, you're right, and sometimes when you see that, you wonder why. Well, we all know why at the end of the day, but why? If I was an average everyday citizen, why I'm not more concerned with this? And you should be, and not whether it's just guns or the Planned Parenthood or whatever it is. It's that slippery slope of you start banning free speech, there's only one thing left, and that's just a dictatorship.
Speaking of the Supreme Court's recent rulings, of course, they upheld the Safety Act 2.0, the Pritzker Purge Law 2.0, as I would call it.
Yep.
And so you're on the clock to prepare for the New Jerusalem that's coming next month. So where does that stand? Like, what preparations are you making in Kendall County for the elimination of cash bail?
Well, we were making preparations before the circuit court and then ultimately the Supreme Court stayed the provisions. So we had some of those already in place. We're going through the list of the inmates that would be eligible for release or potentially eligible for release and figuring out what we're going to do with them. Those that we want to detain, we're fortunate in Kendall County. We don't have the sheer numbers that will detain Sangamon. The bigger counties, Champaign, are going to have to cook. I don't know what they're going to do. They'll probably just let everyone out. But trying to deal with those inmates and trying to make sure we've had calls from victims saying, what's going to happen? Should I move? Should I?
Yes.
Should I somewhere? As long as you leave us your address so we can find you a trial. Yeah.
Right.
But they're concerned. I mean, they literally don't know what's coming, and trying to ensure their safety is our number one concern, obviously, and then obviously the community is a very close second. But yeah, it's a major concern. Trying to figure out how this crazy new way of life in the criminal justice system is going to be implemented, and just the sheer volume of cases that we're going to be dealing with just on detain or not detain, going to be interesting.
And I assume this is what you're hearing when you talk to colleagues, other county states attorneys, right?
Absolutely. We're all going through the same issue, the same process. Again, trying to get these cases to trial in the time frame that they've now made it even faster, which I find, everyone wants a right to speedy trial, and we all agree as prosecutors that it should be as quick as possible. But the faster you put this on the clock, and then you want us to have all the evidence ready to go, no cracks that aren't filled, everything ready, and you want it done in 90 days. And it's like, you know what? Obviously, people who pass this don't practice. They don't know the situation, that's just almost an impossibility. But everyone else will figure out a way to make it happen.
One other matter before we let you go, and that was the response from the General Assembly and the governor to the challenge to the purge law that made them refashion it and have to fight it out in court. And that is that you cannot challenge state laws except in Cook or Sangamon counties. As a suburban state's attorney, how does that sit with you?
Well, it seems like it was a punishment, and again, I assume that's what it was for rulings that they were getting in counties they didn't like, so they just set it up that they could go where they are. I understand it from a practical standpoint. The Attorney General's offices are in those two counties, but I thought it was very convenient after they got some bad rulings to just change the rules. We'll just change the rules and make it, why not Kendall County? We could just do everything in Kendall County. There's nothing wrong here. We have nice, places to stay, good places to eat.
It's too far. It's too far from Cook County.
Yeah. Too far from Cook County.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot.
It's
so,
too far.
it was a retaliatory action. Not surprised. But again, we just keep playing by the rules that they've put forward to us, and again, we'll figure it out and ultimately hope the right decisions come down.
All right. He is Eric Weis, State's Attorney for Kendall County. Eric, thanks as always. Good luck out there.
All right, thanks. Dan and Amy, have a good one.
Thank you. You too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
It's summertime, and you want to keep the shop, warehouse, and other doors open for ventilation. Air circulation improves the well-being of your employees and customers, but open doors can let in the uninvited, like strangers, birds, rodents, and bugs. Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. can help solve the problem with a full line of commercial screen door products designed with these specific problems in mind. Call Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. now. Also, regular scheduled maintenance is the key, and Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. has multiple levels of maintenance programs for your company's needs and budget. They'll ensure your doors, grills, gates, and dock equipment are working to specification to increase the useful life of your doors. Visit their website to see a range of products and services at industrialdoor.com. Call anytime, 847-258-5620. Their team will be there to assist in designing a solution that works best for you. Since 1982, the Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. takes care of your doors so you can take care of business.
I met another one, a very satisfied Balance of Nature customer. She's been taking Balance of Nature for almost 10 years, she said, and she loves it. She swears by it. She said, I just feel good knowing that I'm putting some fruits and veggies in my body because don't get enough on my own, and that's really where Balance of Nature comes in. 31 whole fruits and vegetables, real food, real nutrition. So get your health back. Be proactive.